America's Forgotten Child. The Boy in the Box. Philadelphia, 1957. Winter had settled over the city, gray skies, bare trees, and a quiet that felt almost sacred. On the outskirts, a narrow dirt road led to a stretch of frozen field, the kind of place people forget exists. That morning, a young man walked through the weeds carrying old animal traps when he noticed something unusual. A cardboard box, half crushed, resting among the frost. He hesitated, stepped closer, and lifted the lid. Inside, the small, pale body of a boy. No coat, no shoes, no one who came forward to claim him. Police searched for answers, but the truth refused to speak. Posters were printed, headlines screamed. And yet, he remained a mystery. The boy in the box, an entire city haunted by a child with no name, no voice, no past. Detectives grew old, evidence faded, and the story turned into a whisper of what once was. But mysteries like this never truly die. They sleep, waiting for the world to listen again. And after 65 years of silence, that whisper finally found its voice. The winter of 1957 had wrapped Philadelphia in a quiet kind of sorrow. The sky hung low and colorless, as if even the clouds were too tired to move. Every street, every field, every frozen puddle seemed to carry the same stillness, a stillness that whispered of something waiting, something unseen. Out on a narrow dirt road in Fox Chase, the city's noise was a distant memory. Only the crunch of boots against frozen earth disturbed the silence. A young man was out that afternoon, wandering through the weeds and overgrown brush, checking his rabbit traps. He wasn't supposed to be there. The land was private, but that was the least of his worries. He'd taken this route before, enough times to know every fence post, every rusted can along the roadside. But that day, something unfamiliar caught his eye. A cardboard box, half crushed, lying in the reeds as if the wind had carried it there. It looked ordinary at first, a discarded package maybe, or a child's toy left behind. Still, he hesitated. The box was the kind once used for baby bassinets, printed with faint, smiling illustrations that the rain had nearly erased. The edges were damp, the cardboard soft to the touch. When he crouched beside it and lifted the flap, a chill ran through him that had nothing to do with the cold air. Inside, wrapped in a thin plaid blanket, was the body of a boy, no older than 4, maybe 5. His small limbs were pale, the skin marked by bruises that told a story of suffering too old for such a young life. His hair had been crudely cut, uneven and jagged, as if someone had tried to disguise him, to make him look like someone else. The man froze. The breath caught in his throat. His mind tried to explain what his eyes refused to accept. He looked around, at the empty field, at the bare trees trembling under the wind, but there was no one. The world had narrowed to that single terrible image inside the box. For a long time he stood there, unsure of what to do. He told himself to walk away, to forget. And he did. He left the field without a word, without looking back, carrying the weight of what he'd seen like a ghost that clung to his shoulders. Days passed before he found the courage to speak. By the time the police arrived, the February wind had already stolen what little truth the scene once held. Footprints were gone, soil washed clean by melting frost. The boy remained silent as the day he was left there, waiting for someone, anyone, to remember that he had once been alive. When detectives approached the box, the silence seemed to deepen. They noted every detail, the plaid blanket, the blue corduroy cap nearby, The small bruises around the head, the faint smell of soap and rain. Cameras flashed, notebooks filled with numbers and sketches that could never capture what was truly lost. Someone whispered that he couldn't be more than 4 years old. Another said he looked too thin, as if he hadn't eaten in days. And above it all, the same question circled unspoken. Who could do this? By the time the first patrol car arrived, the sun had already begun to sink behind the trees, turning the frozen landscape a dull metallic gray. Detectives stepped carefully through the brush, their heavy coats brushing against the reeds, their boots sinking into the wet soil. They were used to crime scenes, used to the quiet that follows violence. But this was different. There was something unbearable about the smallness of it, about the fragile shape inside that box. One officer, barely 24, hesitated before pulling back the blanket. He whispered a curse under his breath, something half prayer, half disbelief. The boy's head bore signs of blunt trauma, an injury severe enough to end a life but clean enough to hide its story. Old scars trailed down his legs and arms, faint and pale, evidence of an older pain that no one had ever stopped to notice. He wasn't a child of a single terrible moment. He was a child who had suffered for a long time. The detectives worked with slow precision. They measured the box, 15 inches wide, 19 long, 7 deep, and recorded it all in the sharp, clipped handwriting of procedure. Nearby, they found a blue corduroy cap, slightly damp, and a child's blanket folded as if by habit rather than care. A few strands of brown hair clung to the fabric. The air smelled faintly of soap, wood smoke, and something else, something metallic like rust. In the following days, the city of Philadelphia woke to headlines that seemed impossible to ignore. Boy found dead in box, police seek identity. The newspapers printed his photograph, small, black and white, the kind that never lets you forget. He didn't look like a corpse in that picture. He looked asleep, caught between worlds, waiting for someone to call his name. Flyers flooded the streets. 10,000 copies were sent across Pennsylvania and beyond to hospitals, schools, orphanages, post offices. They reached train stations, diners, bus terminals. Everywhere his face appeared, people stopped. They stared. And then, one by one, they looked away. Detectives followed every lead, no matter how thin. Mothers arrived at the morgue clutching old photographs, convinced the boy could be theirs. Each time, a sliver of hope flickered, and each time, it died. No missing person report matched him. No hospital could place him. Every orphanage swore they had never seen his face before. Forensic experts examined his hands for fingerprints, but the prints belonged to no one in any record. His teeth showed no signs of professional dental work. His stomach contained the faint trace of baked beans, his last meal perhaps, a detail that would haunt investigators for years. And yet, amid all this data, all this evidence, the case refused to take shape. It was like trying to build a person out of smoke. The boy had come from somewhere, that much was certain, but from where and from whom remained unanswered. As the days turned into weeks, the story became something larger than a crime. It became a question that every parent in Philadelphia silently asked themselves at night. How could a child vanish so completely and no one notice? The detectives began to carry the case like a ghost. They revisited the field again and again, searching for anything they might have missed, a piece of clothing, a scrap of paper, a single footprint. But the land gave nothing back. The February frost had hardened over the soil, sealing away whatever secrets it once held. At headquarters, a young reporter asked a detective what he thought of it all. The detective paused for a long moment before answering. "There's something wrong about this one," he said quietly. "It feels like the world forgot him before he even died." And so the file grew thicker, the evidence room fuller, and the trail colder. The boy in the box had become a symbol, not just of death, but of disappearance itself. Years slipped by, and the box that once held a child became the box that held a mystery. The photographs yellowed, the reports gathered dust, and yet, somehow, the story refused to die. Every detective who touched the case left a piece of themselves inside it, and each one, sooner or later, admitted the same thing. They had started to dream about the boy. He would appear at the edge of their thoughts, quiet and unfinished, as if waiting to be claimed. Then, in the early 1960s, a woman named Martha came forward. She was thin, nervous, with eyes that never stayed still. Her voice shook as she spoke to the police, the words tumbling out too quickly, like a confession that had waited too long to be said. She claimed she had once lived in a foster home, a place that smelled of bleach and loneliness, run by a woman who collected children like stray cats. According to Martha, this caretaker had purchased a small boy from his birth parents, paid in cash, and kept him hidden in the basement. She said the boy was quiet, delicate, and often punished for things no one could name. One night, after an especially brutal beating, he stopped breathing. Panic followed. The caretaker wrapped him in a blanket, placed him inside a cardboard box from a discarded bassinet, and drove out to the edge of Fox Chase. She left him there among the weeds under the same colorless sky that still hung over Philadelphia. The story was horrifying, specific, and eerily familiar. Martha described the plaid blanket. She described the haircut, uneven, as if cut in anger. Even the box. She remembered it clearly, she said, because she had helped tape it shut. Detectives listened in silence. If what she said was true, the case could finally be solved. But as the questioning went on, small cracks began to appear. Dates didn't align. Addresses shifted. People who might have confirmed her story had died years earlier. And yet, there was something about her that felt sincere. As though she wasn't lying, just haunted by a memory too broken to fit perfectly together. When her story reached the papers, it reignited public interest. Crowds speculated. Some believed Martha entirely. Others said she was delusional, a lonely woman desperate to be part of something bigger than her own pain. The police could find no physical evidence to connect her claims to the boy, and when the leads ran out again, the file returned to the archives. The silence closed over it like snow. Still, rumors have a way of surviving where facts do not. Through the 1970s and 80s, the case took on a kind of folklore. Some said the boy was the child of a carnival worker, abandoned on the road when the family moved on. Others whispered that he might have been part of a human trafficking ring or a runaway from another state, lost in the shuffle of bureaucracy and fear. Every version contradicted the last, but they all shared the same unbearable truth. Someone, somewhere, had loved him once and had let him die. Detectives kept reopening the file, tracing one rumor after another. Each time they came close enough to believe they were about to solve it, and each time the truth slipped away again. It was like chasing a ghost through fog. Then, almost half a century later, another name began to echo through the case files: Bobby Dunbar. The connection seemed absurd at first, a coincidence born of desperation. But when the details emerged, even the skeptics paused. Because Bobby Dunbar, too, had been a boy lost, a boy who disappeared, only to reappear as someone else. And that story, like the one in the box, carried its own terrible secret. Long before the boy in the box was found in Philadelphia, another child had vanished hundreds of miles away. And decades earlier, the year was 1912. In a small town in Louisiana, a family named Dunbar had taken their 4-year-old son, Bobby, on a summer outing to Swayze Lake. The day was ordinary. Laughter, the shimmer of water, the drone of insects, until suddenly, it wasn't. At some point between the splashing and the silence, Bobby disappeared. One moment he was there, running along the muddy bank with the stick in his hand. The next, he was gone. The mystery of the boy in the box would echo far beyond Philadelphia. In our next story, we'll follow another missing child, a boy named Bobby Dunbar. And with him, one question will return. Who was the boy they really found? To be continued. Every secret waits to be revealed. Every silence that carries an echo, every story is waiting to be told. What about yours? What do you think about this case? Share your thoughts in the comments. Every voice matters. Subscribe and step into the echoes of truth.